Welcome, everybody, to today's Spirit Salon. I am Michael Smith, founder of Empath Connection. And today with us, we have Melissa Schwartz, one of my favorite people who you may have recognized from the Shift Network Summit, the Empaths and Intuitive Summits from the last 4 or 5 years or so. Today's Spirit Salon. Ooh, this is a good one. I get my radio announcer voice because I did used to actually work on radio. Someone mentioned today, I thought it was funny. They said, you'd be really good for radio, and I'm like, well, I used to work on radio. So as the viewers come in, welcome to those of you that are here today for the Spirit Salon. We've got a fantastic topic: loving your emotions. We as empaths, sensitive people, how do we love our emotions rather than suppressing them, denying them, pushing them away? We're going to have an amazingly juicy conversation today. 30 minutes, 40 minutes, we'll see how it goes. And go ahead, please, and say hello in the chat, in the comments section, because it's always good for us as empaths and sensitive people to know who's here so that we can give you a shout out, or just, when I know that my people are here, it brings a smile to my face and my heart. So please do type that into the chat box. Okay. Introduction of today's guest. First of all, for those of you that might be new to Empath Connection or the work, I'm Michael. I work in the healing arts as a channel, medium, shamanic practitioner of indigenous healing arts. I've been doing that for 17 years. And I am the creator of the Empath Sanctuary community and our guest Melissa has been a part of that. We have great guest speakers. It's a gathering place. So if you like what is here today, you'll love the Empath Sanctuary. Now, Melissa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yay. Hi. Thanks, Michael. I'm first of all, so happy to be here with you. I always love chatting with you. So I am Melissa Schwartz. I'm a coach for highly sensitive families and women. And I've been doing this work for almost 15 years now. And I work with those of us who are deep feelers. Many of us are empaths, not all of us. The work that Michael and I do is really complementary, which is why I always have so much fun chatting with you. And I am starting a new group for sensitive women in about 2 weeks called Abundantly Sensitive. My belief is that we're not too sensitive, we're abundantly sensitive. We've just got more sensitivity. And so that is a 6-month group for women who want to take a deep dive into the kind of stuff that we're talking about today. And Michael, I believe you were a guest in one of my groups not that long ago, in the last year or two, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's always lovely when we get to work together, because our work is different and it's so similar at the same time.
Yep. Yeah. So, all right. Loving our emotions. All right. Melissa, what would you say? This is an age-old question. Let's just start out right off the bat with this. I know a lot of us as empaths, we are with partners, we're in relationships, we're in families where the word empath is not understood. And because empaths, we connect to others through the emotional body, and we connect to the world around us through emotions. To have a partner or family or even friends where we feel like we have to hide this ginormous aspect of who we are. I mean, it's who we are, right? And many of us feel like we have to hide that. How do we handle that? What do you do, and what would you suggest that we do in order to bring some balance around that particular topic?
It's an interesting question, because I know for me as a young empath, when I was a child, I wasn't aware of what was going on. I just was feeling so much. I was over feeling my way through the world because I was responding to other people's emotions, not just my own. And so once I realized I was an empath, I wanted to kind of shout it from the rooftops because I wanted people to know that I figured out who I was. I wanted to normalize for other empaths that there was nothing wrong with them, that they weren't misinterpreting things, that they weren't inappropriate, that they weren't like crazy, because it can feel a little crazy making being an empath, especially when you're an unhealthy empath or an like an immature empath where you haven't yet figured out how to utilize it. And for me personally, the coolest part about being an empath now is being able to sort of control the floodgates of when it's open and when it's closed. Like being an empath is one of the things that makes me really good at the work that I do. But when I go to Costco, I don't want to be an open floodgate. I don't want to be feeling everybody's stuff around me. And so becoming skilled as an empath is a really wonderful thing. And then there's like, why hide it? Come out of the closet about it. Let people
Yeah.
know. Tell them about it. It's part of what makes me who I am. I'm not like peering into other people's souls without permission. I'm not, looking inside of you without you knowing. But it is a big piece of what makes me who I am. And so if you're an empath, I encourage you to talk about it, normalize it. There's no reason to kind of hide that aspect of us. There's really no shame in it.
When we do hide everybody, there's a cost involved. There's a physiological cost. Our heart chakras, whenever we feel that we have to hide who we are, I love what you said, Melissa. Shout it from the rooftops, normalize it, because A, we allow our heart chakra to stay open and not closed. And when we feel like we have to hide who we are, you know, God, for so long. I mean, because I grew up gay, right? This is an example of that. My heart chakra was closed for as a young adult into my 20s for many, many years, and I suffered physiologically with that. So that's, I mean, shout it from the rooftops, yes. And the second point with that is, man, do we ever give permission for other people to be their unique, amazing, weird, joyous, happy, silly? I like to use the word crazy for myself, selves. I own it, right? And that's, I think, a lot of us, what we're learning to do is we're learning to own our emotional nature, warts and all. And guess what happens when we do that, everybody? You give permission for your parents to open up themselves. Okay, I got to share this story since this is all right. This is actually kind of funny. So my parents come, like many of us, I'm sure, come from a generation where we were taught not to pry into other people's. I remember as a little young boy, you know, but why, mommy? Asking questions, and why can't I ask Susie about her, whatever? And my mother would say, Michael, we don't pry into other people's private lives. There's that kind of pulling back of our energy. So my parents are fairly conservative. They're wonderful people. Have got a great relationship. Just like many of you who might be watching, uh, your parents, you understand when I say that there's generational differences in how we handle communication, how we handle owning who we are, and in particular emotions. So my parents know by now that I'm crazy. They don't understand, and I say that again in a way because I own it. I love that part of me. I'm off doing this, I'm that, I'm talking to the divine, I've got dead people talking to me. I'm the weird one in the family. And to me, again, weird is a great, great word. So here's where I'm going with this. Because I have committed to telling my parents everything about what I do as a channel, as a medium, all of it. About 2 months ago, I knew that this would happen sooner or later, and it did happen. My dad and I and my mom and I were talking on the phone call, and we were chit-chatting, and my dad's like, "Hey, babes," he calls my mom babes. He's like, "Hey, babes, do you think we should tell Michael about the story about how he was conceived?" And my jaw hit the floor in ecstasy, and I was laughing. It was funny, and it was this type of a thing that we all have the ability to do, to be able to see that in a generation that was so reserved. And we wound up laughing, and my dad was in a full body cast while I was conceived, and it was just a hilarious story. So
Well,
everyone listening, I've got a question for you, and then Melissa, I'd love to get your perspective on this. The question for you, for those of you that are listening either live or watching the recording, first of all, say hi, hello to Julia, hello to Viviane, tell us where you're from. How can I, this is a question to yourself, how can I share myself even more authentically, who I am? Melissa, perspective or comments on what we've talked about thus far?
yeah, I love your question. And I think that for those of us who are really sensitive, sharing ourselves authentically really depends on where we're sharing ourselves to some degree. Because when we share the parts of ourselves that are vulnerable and tender and sacred with an audience that doesn't revere it or understand it, we might shrink back and use that as a reason to not be who we are. We might use that judgment or response as evidence that who we are is not okay. And so there is, I believe, a way to be our authentic self in as a chameleon, and sort of showing up um, as who we are to meet the audience. In other words, no, I don't know, you might, because I know you a little bit, so I have a feeling that you might like walk into the grocery store and the grocer's like, "How are you doing today?" And like, "Great, I have 8 dead people along here with me for the journey. You want to hear what they have to say?" Something
No,
along,
I don't. I do.
right?
No, no. No, I do not.
So sometimes we sort of tailor who we are to the environment, to
Yeah.
who we know that they can be. But I also do think that it's important that in relationships, especially with our family, with our partners, with our friends, with the people that we feel safest with, that we do express who we are to them, because otherwise we sort of hold back our whole self,
Mhm.
and we live like a less fulfilling life than we deserve to really have.
So here's a question about emotions.
Mhm.
How do we, rather than holding back our emotions, how do we love our emotions, even the
Yeah.
ones that are upsetting to us as empaths?
So I think it starts by understanding why we even have emotions to begin with. They're not random. They serve a purpose. And it's my belief that emotions are wisdom, that they are guiding us towards or away from our soul's calling, our divine knowing. When we feel joyful and exhilaration, it's because we're moving towards something that is right for who we really are. And when we are feeling nervous or overwhelmed or shame or guilt, it's because we're moving away from what it is that's really in our destiny,
Mhm.
what it is that's like our true purpose. And and a lot of us tend to feel an emotion and then get stuck in it. Then we ruminate and we justify why we're there, and we rationalize it, and we just amplify that vibration until it's like becomes normal for us, and then we draw more of those experiences onto us because we are vibrational beings. So when we can start to recognize emotions as guidance and as temporary guidance, emotions are fleeting. They're not meant to last a long time. They're meant to be like 90 seconds of information. And unless we continue to ruminate and perseverate, they're gone and we're on to the next. But a lot of us have like held on to an emotion from when we were 4 years old and we felt embarrassed or left out. And now that's like morphed into our identity. And so we continue to attract experiences that are of the same frequency of that emotion. And we just now start to shift our beliefs about how life works and what we're worthy of. And we just get like sucked down into the really unwanted aspects of life, and then use life as a reason to justify why we're feeling those emotions. Was that
You
too heady?
That's brilliant, because I've never heard anyone say before in the way that you just said that you didn't use these words, this word, but like they're magnetic attractors for experiences in life. And if we are stuck in an emotion or you use ruminating on an emotion, then we're going to get more of that. I
Yeah.
love that. And then I also love the fact that you said that, again, guiding us towards or away our divine self or our best selves. There really are navigators to help us. So, gosh, all right. When I feel upset, this is what I do. And I think everyone who's watching, just do this along with us. All right, let's do this together. This is easy. And the question is, how do we become aware of our emotions, notice them, and not get carried away down the river of consciousness with them? Okay? How do we do that? Everyone, inhale a breath from your feet all the way up into your heart. And now exhale everything that came before this moment. And ask your divine self to be present.
Mm.
Is that not simple, everybody? Breath. I don't know about you, Melissa, but I find that when I get upset, as I was last night, raging at the divine, and I'm a double Scorpio sun and moon, so that that emotion can come quick and fast when it does. So I was raging at the divine. And this is another question for everyone who's watching and listening. Do we, and Melissa, I'd love to hear your perspective on this. Do we have the right? Can we get upset at the divine? Can we rage as I did last night, screaming at the top of my lungs? How can you do this to me? Can we do that? And what I did, what I noticed in the moment, Michael, you're getting carried away. I became aware of it. I took a breath, done, and moved on. And I love what you said, Melissa, about, their temporary experiences. Think about everyone, how babies operate. How do babies deal with emotions? They cry one minute and then they're laughing the next. And that's what we can do when we remember to use our breath. Perspectives on that, Melissa?
Yeah. So I like your question about, is it okay or is it appropriate to get upset with the divine? I'm misinterpreting exactly what you said, but yeah, why not? You know, we are we are human beings having a divine experience. Actually, just this weekend, I was having a conversation with my 11-year-old stepdaughter about, really, it was like a philosophical question about the nature of life and where do we go when we die and where do we come from before we're born. And I said to her, I think that as humans we are the universe experiencing itself. And she was like, oh, cool. And we were kind of talking about it. And so if we're going to agree with that idea that we are the universe experiencing ourselves, then of course we can be upset with ourselves. I get upset with myself as a human. Why not get upset with myself as the divine sometimes, especially when I'm putting myself into a victim consciousness or I'm not allowing myself to live the full expression of who I'm meant to be. It's appropriate to be upset with myself, and so I think a big piece about loving your emotions is just making peace with all that is, just living from a place of acceptance, surrendering to whatever shows up in the moment, because otherwise we're fighting against, and then we're in conflict with, really, with ourselves, right?
All right. Brilliant. Everyone repeat this either inside your mind or out loud if you can. I accept whatever emotion shows up in the moment. And then what is the echo that comes back to you? Those of you that are watching and listening, when you say that, I accept whatever emotion shows up in the moment without judgment. Say that. And then what is the echo that comes back? I don't know about you, those of you that are watching, listening. I feel tingles and rushes from my feet moving up my body, creating a vortex of positive energy. And when we come together in community like this, we got 13 people right now. Uh, we're in community, everybody. Those of you that are here live, you're empaths. We're pinging off each other vibrationally right now. So when we're having really, I consider this a ceremony. We're intentionally cultivating divine energy. We're seeking, how do we get more of the good stuff? Don't forget, everyone, that when we are experiencing emotion, or when we are experiencing our humanity, and as Melissa said, we are the divine in the human body. It's important for us to remember that we have permission to feel it all, because we came into a human body to feel it all: the light, the dark, the shadow, up, down, left, right, anger, upset, murder, whatever. We came here to experience all of it. Let's not forget that. And thanks, Melissa, for being a reminder for us that we have permission. That's what I heard you really say.
Yeah. And I almost want to say we even have an obligation to accept all of it, because otherwise we're just resisting what is. And where does that get us? That never gets anybody anyplace good,
No.
that brings us back into that emotional vibration of drawing in more that isn't right, and now we're blaming this one, and we're upset with that one, and the world is wrong, and we're just going to start seeing more and more of it. But if we decide to live from a place of deliberate acceptance of all that is, of
Yeah.
allowing it all to be, then when you were saying that, Michael, I was feeling this like real immense just sense of warmth and spaciousness. When we live from that other side, that other perspective, then everything is appropriate, everything is allowed, everything has its purpose. We don't have to condone it, we don't have to engage with it, we don't have to celebrate it if it doesn't feel right for us, but we don't have to push against it. There's if it exists, it exists. So pushing against it is only going to amplify it, because now it's just getting our attention.
Yeah. Whenever I say in all of the work that we do, especially the Empath Sanctuary community, which we're doing a lifetime membership drive right now. For those of you that are really loving this conversation, check it out at empathconnection.com, or use the link in the chat. Where was I going with that? I completely lost that train of thought.
What we resist persists.
Yes, what we resist. Thank you
Yeah.
for bringing that back. There's a formula for a crappy life experience. Are you guys ready to hear this? This is kind of funny. As our community is, it's playful and joyful. So the equation, because I'm a math guy, I love math. You wouldn't know it because I really don't talk about it, but I love equations. And the formula for a crappy life experience is resistance plus protest plus judgment equals crappy life. And that's something, Melissa, that you just gave voice to. Thank you for sharing that. What about the effect of the moon on our emotions? This is something that I don't hear a lot of empaths and sensitive people talking, at least overtly, about the effect of the full moon, and the effect of the moon on our emotions. What's your experience, Melissa, with the full moon? Just personally, I'm curious.
Yeah. Well, so I want to say, as a woman, I probably have a different relationship with the moon than you do as a non-woman, right? Because
Yeah.
women, we have moon cycles, we feel ourselves being affected by the moon. But I had a really interesting experience. I used to live right by the beach in San Diego for many years, and so I got to be really familiar with the tides and see how the moon affected the tides. And living at the beach, I lived right there. I got to really know the cycles and see them move. And so it was really fascinating to me just to observe how the full moon impacted the water on our planet. And we're what, 70%, 80%
Yeah.
water, our bodies. So we have to be impacted by it, whether or not we're aware of it. It could be happening on a more subtle level. But personally, I like to think about the moon in terms of letting go and planting seeds, using the full and the new moon as these opportunities for personal ceremony to some degree. I also just want to add in here that as a Jewish woman, the new moon is a really important part of like Jewish culture too, right? We celebrate the new moon as the beginning of the new month. We're just about at Rosh Hashanah in a couple of next week. Is it this week? On Wednesday night this week, we're celebrating the new moon and the start of the new Jewish New Year. And so for me personally, I see the new moon as an opportunity for getting clear and setting intentions, and the full moon as an opportunity for really releasing and letting go. And you know, this waxing and waning, I think we move through it ourselves. You know, we are always intending and releasing, right? And so using the moon as sort of an external reminder, although maybe not so
Yeah.
external if it's really, you know, kind of pushing and pulling us also, is it's a really beautiful way to connect with nature, which again, as sensitive people, we tend to be really tuned in. So the moon is a beautiful guider of this rhythm. Yeah.
You know, as you're speaking, what's coming up in me is I remember when I was first starting my awakening around 2003, I worked with a Canadian shaman. We just called him Bro. He called me Bro. Hey, Bro, what's up? And he was a kick. He was what is known as a heyoka, a sacred clown. And anyway, that's beside the point. One of the things he had me do was track the moon cycles on my daily journal. And at that time, he had me write down everything on a journal every day.
Mm,
And I thought it was curious. He never told me why. Interesting, right? Wanted me to figure it out on my own. Well, 30 years later, or 20 whatever years later, um, now I know,
mm,
because I am like a lot of us, those of you who might be watching, uh, we're very sensitive to where the moon is placed in the zodiac. So, I'll give you an example. If you really want to become aware of your own consciousness even more, with more refinement, more discernment, more consciousness, more awareness of you, which includes your relationship to the moon, which is you, as you mentioned, it is us. You know, there's no separation between us and the moon. So where it is in any particular elemental energy, for instance, I'm pretty good about being able to be aware what whether it's in an air or a
mm,
fire sign, for instance. So like if I find
mm,
myself overthinking, and if you find yourself overthinking, I encourage everyone to go to astro.com and just check out the placements. It'll tell you real time where the moon is and what
mm,
element. So for me, when it's in water, which is mostly my elemental makeup, or if it's in earth, I find that I feel a lot more grounded. I don't
mm,
do a lot of overthinking. But man, if it's in fire or air,
mm,
um, whew, that's a recipe for overthinking. So astro.com, just encourage those of you that are watching and listening to check that out. It's a highly valuable resource because, as Melissa said, you know, we're 80% water, and man, it really does affect us. Um, all right, let's talk about why anger is an ally.
mm.
Uh, this one is a good one. This is a great question for all of us. Those of you that are watching, I'd like you to type into the chat. I want to hear. We want to see, and know. There's no right or wrong answers. You guys know that are in my community, in our community, it's non-judgmental, unconditional love, and we practice that. So whatever your truth is your truth. We honor that. So the question is, why, or how rather, how is anger a friend and an ally to us?
Mm.
And just go with your first instinct. Type that into the chat, please. And Uh, yeah, because I find that some of us, depending on where we are in our evolution, treat anger as if it's something wrong or
Yes.
bad, the big B word, right? Like, you know, it's something that yes, it's uncomfortable. What if it were a friend? What if it were an ally? So Kate, that's a Meg, brings focus. How does it yeah, what does it help you focus on, Meg? Right? It's we're getting the feeling it helps you, Meg, to reorient. Good to see you again, Meg. Thanks for showing up at our webinar this week. Kate, it shows me what I care about. Yeah, Mel, focuses our awareness. The word focus twice. Yeah. So I find that that it helps reorient us towards our light. And when we become aware when I become aware that I'm upset or angry, then we get to choose. I get to choose, just like I did last night when I was, you know, going cuckoo at the
Yeah.
divine for being, upset. Um, Melissa, anything that you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with Kate. I think it really clarifies what matters, what's really important. But anger for me is one of the more interesting emotions because, well, for two reasons. One is, at least in our American culture, anger is a really acceptable unwanted emotion. I think it's probably the most accepted of the low vibrational emotions, especially in men. Angry women, oh no, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
But angry men, we're fine with that. We
Mm.
we seem to be okay with it. So I find it interesting that that tends to be the low vibration emotion that men are most comfortable expressing and it's most acceptable. The other thing about emotion that I find really interesting is I actually think anger is rarely a clean emotion. In other words, I always describe anger as like a brown or a muddy emotion, because if you think about emotions as colors, and let's say we thought about shame as red, and jealousy is green, and inadequacy is yellow. If you were to draw with those three colors, it would look kind of brown. And what I find is that often when we're feeling angry, we're actually feeling like a mix of different emotions that are all being expressed at the same
Yes.
time. And as a conglomerate, we call it anger. And it's
Yep.
also because when we were kids, think about if you have kids or you're around kids a lot, we talk with them a lot. We say, oh, you look angry. You seem angry. No, I'm jealous. I'm
Yes.
frustrated. I'm
Thank you.
resentful. I'm
Yeah.
heartbroken, and we just label it as like angry or sad. Those are like the emotions that we usually give to kids to describe how they're feeling. And if you're a sensitive person or an empath, you're probably not feeling anger all that often, but you're feeling all of these emotions that then get expressed as anger.
It's so good. Yeah, anger's a secondary emotion. There's
Yeah.
always something underneath the anger, as you rightly express, whether it's hurt or grief or, being ashamed, whatever. Anger is a secondary emotion. Yeah, very good point.
Often it's,
Yeah.
I think, powerlessness too. When we
Oh,
feel
yes.
powerless,
Yeah.
then we get angry at the perpetrator or the
Yep.
experience or the thought, because anger has more power than feeling hopeless or powerless, right? There's energy movement in anger, which is why that's, I think,
God.
the one that we tend to go to, because at least there's like strength in it. It feels like we're doing
Yeah.
something instead of just kind of wallowing in these feelings that leave us kind of weighed down and really powerless.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. There's power in there. And that, all right. Let's talk about crying.
Mm,
Another fun, uh, or not so fun, depending on your perspective. I love to cry.
me too.
It's a water sign, right? I'm sure all the water signs are like, me too. Um, why is crying so important?
Yeah.
What's your perspective on that? And please type into the chat. That's a question for all of us. This is a community event. What's your relationship to crying is the question to the audience. And why is crying necessary in order mm, to experience more good? More
Mm,
good. Yeah.
yeah. I love your
Melissa?
question. I'm a water sign too, so maybe that is why I love to cry so
Are you
much.
Pisces?
I'm a Cancer.
Cancer, okay.
Yeah.
Well, no
Um,
wonder we get along so well.
I was thinking that. Um, you know, there are two reasons why I think crying is so beneficial. One is like really hysterical crying, like full body crying is just cathartic. I think it releases emotion that is stored in the tissue, and because that's really where we hold on to old emotion is in our body, and crying allows the release of it. But also I just read something recently that said that in our actual tears are the it's like the brain chemistry that gets released. And so when we cry, we're actually allowing our brains to come back online to
Mhm.
we're reorienting our brain chemistry. And so there is actually like a physiological shift in our body when we cry. Um, but I also just think that when we release the old, it allows the space for the wanted to come in, so it
Yeah.
feels really good. It's almost like like with a hot air balloon, how they used to cut the weights. I don't think they really do that anymore because it can't possibly be good for the environment. But it's almost like crying is like cutting the weights, and then it
Right.
allows us it allows our vibration to raise. It's like the letting go of those anchors that we've been holding on to, those magnetic poles that are drawing more of the unwanted to show up into our life. It really is the releasing of it so that there's room for the wanted to emerge, to show up, to take up space.
Oh, what a beautiful releasing the old for the wanted to occur. Okay, so question for the audience. Those of you watching, whether it's on the recording or live, please add your comments. Even on the recording, add your comments so that we can all benefit, because a gazillion more people are going to see the recording. How do we uh all right, so all right, let me get this question right. In order to, what is the mechanism that allows us to release the old for the wanted, as you said, Melissa, to come in? Where specifically in our energetic anatomy
Mm.
does that happen? And it's heart. It's right here. I've got my little pendant, my turquoise pendant over my heart chakra, everybody. When we cry, the divine is able to reach us, the wanted, as Melissa said, through the heart chakra. That's how we access more of who we are, more of the good stuff. And so think of crying as a magnetic attractor. If you are
Mm.
repressing, if we are repressing tears and not crying or not allowing ourselves to cry, and so many of us, unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, where we were taught that it
Yeah.
is not okay to cry. And Melissa, you working with kids and parents, thank God they have you as an ally. I wouldn't want anyone else. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to share with the audience how they can find you as we bring this to a close today. Heart chakra, everybody. It's really important that we allow ourselves to cry. So, how long has it been? My question to you, how long has it been since you've cried? And
Oh,
if you were going to cry, and this is where we'll close it down, this is just something to take with you. What would you cry over? What do you
mm,
need to cry about? What do you need to release through tears, through the emotions, so that you can open your heart chakra to more of yourself? Melissa, this has been so much fun today.
so much.
Uh, I can tell that we have a very engaged audience today. Tell us a little bit more of the work that you do,
Yeah.
some of your programs, and where can people find you?
Yeah, so I work with highly sensitive families and highly sensitive women. And there are two ways that I can work with you if you're interested. I have actually on Wednesday a group for parents of sensitive children starting. It's a 6-month group where we meet twice a month, and I coach parents through not just how to be with their children, but how to be the parents that they wish they had so they can be the parent they want to be for their child. So it's about helping parents grow into who they really want to be so that they can utilize the tools that I give them with their children. So that's really fun and exciting. And then I also have a group for sensitive women called Abundantly Sensitive, because my belief is that we're not too sensitive. We are abundantly sensitive. There's just an
Mm.
abundance of it.
Yep.
And once we learn how to use it and see it as our greatest strength, we become unstoppable forces. And sometimes we just need a little support, because most of us didn't grow up with parents who knew what we needed, who knew how to give us what we needed. And so now as adults, we have the opportunity to give it to ourselves. And all of the information about my programs is on my website, which is melissaschwartz.com. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram at melissaschwartz.com. Shoot me a message or an email if you have any questions. Happy to connect.
melissaschwartz.com. And everyone, Melissa is amazing at what she does. She has a good big following. Check out her Facebook page, but go to her website, melissaschwartz.com. Abundantly sensitive, wonderful program. I had the blessing and the gift to be able to interact a little bit with your people a while back. And
Yes.
for those of you that are watching who want, those of you who might be empaths and want to dig more deeply into your own spiritual nature, because our focus in the Empath Sanctuary, the program I run, is connection to the divine and connection to intuition, connection to more of us, releasing challenges, personal transformation, letting go of the old so that we can emerge next year and have all of the good stuff that we want: more health, better relationships, and really knowing who we are as a soul. So I'm going to put the Melissa's website in the chat comments in just a moment after we're done. And then right now, I'm going to put in a link to my Monday messages. I am a channel, and I do channeled inspirational messages every Monday. Please cut and paste that link or click it, depending on what's showing up for you, and feel free to join our online community. It's been so wonderful having you, Melissa. Everyone in type, if you haven't said hello and you're lurking, or maybe you just joined, please type into the comments who you are, where you're from, and what was your biggest takeaway from today, because it's really important for us as empaths to get feedback from one another. And when we share what we're experiencing, somebody else is going to benefit from your comment. So if you tell us, oh, I really love the comment about that Melissa said about this, or what Michael said about this. What is your biggest takeaway? Very important that we tie this up in a little bit of a bow in that way, because then you're going to see that other people are having similar reactions, and we vibrate and we ping off one another. So, and I, as a facilitator, love to see what resonates most deeply for you. And that's part A. All right. Please do that. And then what topics for next week, because we're doing this all October. And I see already we've got some regulars here that are showing up live. Fantastic. What do you want to talk about next week? What's your question to the universe that you'd like answered in one of these spirit salons? So what do you want me to? Hi Trish. What do you want to hear from the divine, or from me, or from each other? What do we want to talk about? Because we won't have a guest next week. It'll be just you, me, and the divine. So put those topics into the chat box. I will take a look at them later, and we'll talk about those. Thank you, everyone, so much. It's been wonderful. Blowing you a kiss. And Melissa, thank you again for
Always a pleasure. It's
being.
always delightful to be with you.
Oh, that's a Lakota word, everyone. It just means amen. Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful rest of your day.